Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the 32nd World LPG Forum and 2019 European Congress. My name is Dave Keating. I'm an energy journalist based in Brussels, the EU correspondent for France 24 and Forbes, and I'm going to be guiding us through these discussions over the next 3 days. As has been the tradition, the World and European LPG associations are combining their events this year, and this dual summit is happening at a turning point for energy globally. It's a time of energy transition, and we're here to talk about how LPG fits into this transition. Now, here in Europe, the focus is firmly on fighting climate change through decarbonization. And the discussion is about which types of fuel are appropriate for that journey. Worldwide, there is also a focus on energy security and energy reliability. And as we've seen with the recent tensions in the Persian Gulf, these concerns are still very much at the fore. But there are also concerns in the developing world in particular about energy poverty and how to ensure that everyone has access to the energy that's essential for economies to grow. So it's an exciting time to be in the energy field. How is LPG going to fit into these exciting times? We're going to find out this week. We'll be hearing from several panels today and tomorrow about the future of the global LPG market. And during these panels, my job is to make sure you guys get everything you can out of this event. So don't be shy with your questions. I'm going to be out in the audience, stirring up the debates. Feel free to find me over the next 2 days. Let me know if there are particular things you really want to know about, and I can pass that information on to our speakers. I really want to hear from you. I want to hear what you're thinking about what you're hearing up on the stage, what you're seeing out in the exhibition area, and of course, what you think about the global LPG market. Now, before I turn it over to our hosts from the WLPGA and the European Association, a few housekeeping notes. This is the really important part of my job. So hopefully you've all figured out already the Wi-Fi access. If not, the signal name is Exceptional Energy. You don't need a passcode, but you do need to check that you're signing up to the terms and conditions in a little welcome screen. Now, once you're logged into that Wi-Fi, I really encourage you to tweet about what you're seeing and what you're thinking. The hashtags for this event are European LPG Congress and World LPG Forum, depending on your geography. And of course, we also have the app. So the app you can download in the iTunes Store or the Play Store. The name of the app is WLPGA Forum. Now that app has the agenda, which is perhaps the most useful thing, but it also allows you to really interact with the event. You can rate the speakers that you're seeing, you can see biographies for everyone here, and you're going to be actually able to interact with some of the panels. I'll explain that a little later today. Now make sure you keep your badge at all times because you're going to need it to go between here and the exhibition area. At both places, they are checking your badge, as you've seen, so don't leave it in your bag. We really encourage you to fill out your surveys in the bags that you received when you came in. You had a survey, but you can also do it in the Daily Forum Voice on Friday at the seats or in the app. It's probably the easiest way to do it. And of course, you're invited to visit the exhibition upstairs. That's also where the meals are going to be. Now, up at the exhibition, we have the Exceptional Energy stage. That's where some of those side events that you see on the agenda are going to be. It's right in the middle of the exhibition center. You can't miss it. What you might miss, what might be a little harder to find, is the leading activities area, which has the sales booth for next year's event. So that's in the corner of the exhibition area. You can find it on the map or just ask any of the people who are standing up there waiting to help you. Now, these proceedings that we're having today will be posted online as from Friday, and the link will be in the Daily Forum Voice that comes out Friday afternoon. And finally, the fire exits you can see on either side or directly behind you. So now we'd like to start with some welcoming words from James Rockall, CEO and Managing Director at the World LPG Association. James?
Excellencies, Meneer van Dijk, the King's Commissioner of the province of North Holland, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And on behalf of the WLPGA and Liquid Gas Europe, welcome again to the opening of the 32nd World LPG Forum and the European LPG Congress here in the beautiful city of Amsterdam. I'd like to first express my thanks to all the supporters, both from WLPGA and Liquid Gas Europe, without whom this event would not be the success that we fully expect it to be. Our sponsors, particularly those at platinum level, SHV Energy, UGI International, and Emirates National Oil Company, ENOC. Of course, also our exhibitors, our speakers, and you, the delegates. You know, this is the first time our forum has come to the Netherlands, and I must say I'm at a loss to understand why it's taken us so long to be here. We're at the heart of Europe, a continent that's brought us the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and now is at the forefront of what is increasingly being referred to as the energy transition. A concept so important and relevant to our industry that we themed the whole event, Energy in Transition. This summer saw record temperatures across the world and also here in Europe. And there were stark warnings from scientists with climate change at the forefront of the public's mind. We've seen teenage climate activists garnering global attention, and the world is seemingly embarrassed by its ongoing addiction to oil and coal. The energy transition, it's a move driven principally by concern about climate change to a range of new technologies to deliver affordable, secure, and sustainable energy in the 21st century. I welcome this ambition. But much of our activity and productivity around the world, dependent on the availability of reasonably priced energy, we must be sure that this energy transition doesn't leave other people behind. We do need a substitution away from fossil fuels, but the pace and the scope of this change needs to be considered in a responsible way. And I strongly believe that LPG can be an enabler of this transition, and it should be part of the solution for a responsible energy future. LPG is the world's favorite form of gas energy, and more people use it directly than any other gaseous fuel. It's clean burning, it's low carbon, and through thousands of applications around the world, it delivers many, many benefits to society. And today, these applications and thousands more are part of everyday life for actually billions of consumers all across the world. And tomorrow, these benefits and more will continue to be secured through the development of bio and renewable LPG. In the coming 30 years, the world will undoubtedly change the way that it heats its homes, the way it powers its industries, or the way it fuels its transport systems. Industry and government will strive together to meet ambitious climate change and air quality targets. And during the coming 2 days and beyond, we're going to show how the European and the global LPG industry can support this transition so that we can ensure that LPG takes its deserved place in tomorrow's energy starting today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, James. Next, I would like to introduce Pedro Jorge Filho, WLPGA President and Managing Director at Brazil's Ultragaz.
Good morning. It's my honor to begin proceeding and to welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, friends and colleagues, to the dynamic and exuberant city of Amsterdam for the 32nd World LPG Forum, meeting under the theme Energy in Transition. This is the first time we have held the World LPG Forum in Amsterdam, and the first time we have held it in Netherlands, a country with a long and remarkable history of commerce, industry, and connections to the global market. The Netherlands is also a global strategic hub for our industry, sitting as it does on the border of the Atlantic and offering a jumping-off point into the immense European market, where our industry continues to thrive, innovate, and looks forward to a long future of strong growth. This is the 32nd year that we are holding the World LPG Forum. From our first forum in 1987 in Dublin to here today in Amsterdam, this event has truly covered the world alike on every major continent, with the exception, of course, Antarctica. When we first gathered in 32 years ago, the world was a very different place. For example, my friends, in 1987, total global production was just under 130 million tons, with total global consumption not too far behind. Last year, both total production and consumption exceeded 300 million tons, and both look set to continue expanding strongly into the future, providing more and more opportunities for our LPG industry. In 1987, the world was also divided along ideological lines between socialist and non-socialist countries. In that meantime, my country, Brazil, set out a new democratic period after long years of military dictatorship. Today, my friends, we live in a vast global economy where our markets and our industry are ever more intertwined as globalization gathers speed and technological change touches every part of our private lives and business. This year's forum reflects this global transformation. The LPG industry exists in every single country in the world, whether very primitive or very sophisticated, and the delegates here today are a testament to the industry's diversity and global reach that continues to grow, as it has since 1987, when this event was first launched. This forum occurs at a very interesting time. As I mentioned before, through 2017 and 2018, the LPG industry has demonstrated continued robust growth in both production and consumption. Much of the production continues to come from the USA, where strong growth has grabbed headlines over the past 3 years. Today, as US production begins to plateau, other countries are now posting equally strong growth, and we expect production to be robust for quite a few years to come. Consumption has also kept pace with production, with much of this growth is taking place in developing countries, and in India in particular, where the government has spearheaded the largest and most ambitious campaign ever to promote LPG for customers of limited means that transform and improve the lives of millions of people. Other countries, such as my own, Brazil, are growing strongly as well and leading the charge in terms of innovation and embracing the potential that technology brings to our industry. I'm very proud of the steps that the company I led for 15 years, Ultragaz in Brazil, has made it through its Vision 2020 program to move into the 21st century and leverage the new age of communications technology. With both production and consumption growing at around 6% a year, it's safe to say that ours is not an industry in crisis, but a major global player in robust health that is enjoying some of the best year in its LPG history. But there are some storm clouds on the horizon, particularly here in Europe, where we gather today. On this continent, aggressive government carbon reduction targets try to regulate our industry out of existence. As an industry, we have to remain nimble in confronting these threats, and the European industry's commitment to bio-LPG as a potential way to address these challenges is notable, and will be discussed at length over the next few days. In the rest of the world, we are watching and hoping to learn from Europe's efforts to demonstrate that LPG is not just a fuel for today, but a fuel that has a deserved place in the low-carbon future as well. This development and another present special challenge to the WLPGA in meeting the expectations of its members and fulfilling its roles as the global voice of the LPG industry. To face this, WLPGA in 2019 conducted a 3-year strategic review which set out the strategy for WLPGA operating activities in the periods from 2020 to 2022. We will revamp our structure to emphasize the agility of the organization, to maximize its global footprint, and ensure that it continues to be capable of representing the interests of the industry professionally and pragmatically. We will also focus on the technologies and innovations that will guide our industry into the future. Things like renewable LPG, of which bio-LPG is just one element, and the Internet of Things are both disruptive technologies that will shape our future. Applications like power generation, maritime, and pay-as-you-go system also promise to open up new areas of opportunity for WLPGA members from Canada to Korea and from Mozambique to Mongolia. My friends, this is my last forum as president of WLPGA, as my term is coming to an end. Over the last 2 years, I've had a front row seat to inner workings of the WLPGA. I've seen up close the dedication of the WLPGA team and experienced firsthand the strong support of WLPGA members, and I have to say that I'm very proud of my time here. In my presidency, I've worked to ensure that the organization is on sound footing as an institution that ensures it will be durable and robust and ready to continue representing the interests of the LPG industry well in the future. I think I have succeeded. With new records set in membership levels and new countries added to the WLPGA family, it's safe to say that our global footprint has never been bigger, our level of influence never stronger, our credibility never as unquestionable. WLPGA remains without doubt and without question the global voice of the LPG industry. I leave the presidency in the capable hands of my successor, Mr. Rico Bon, knowing that the WLPGA is prospering along with the LPG industry. For this week's program, we have dynamic speakers and chairmen lined up to debate and discuss all pertinent LPG topics, and the social events have been chosen to enhance your network and interaction, as well to give you a unique taste of Dutch hospitality. In addition to the conference today, there is also an exhibition where you can visit a host of key companies from every spectrum of the LPG business under one roof. I encourage you, my friend, to spend some time seeing what's on display and catch up with the newest innovation in our industry. The LPG industry has tremendous opportunity to contribute to a cleaner, health, and more prosperous world. And we are fortunate to be gathered here this week in vibrant Amsterdam, a city famous for its history, commerce, and art, to meet with old friends, strike up new friendships, and create, of course, the future for our industry. On behalf of WLPGA, I would like to once again thank our Dutch hosts and welcome you all to Amsterdam. Have a nice forum. Muito obrigado.
Thanks very much. So now let's move to the political dimension for our first keynote speech. We are very privileged to be joined by Arthur van Dyck. He's the King's Commissioner for the province of North Holland. That's the province that we are in at the moment in Amsterdam. He chairs the Provincial Council, the 55 people's representatives who are in charge of this province's policies. Commissioner van Dyck.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, at first, I warm welcome WLPG here in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I think we really appreciate that you choose Amsterdam this year. So it's really a great honor for us to host this Congress. And as I was informed, some of you already had a dinner last night and you made a sail trip. And to talk about energy transition, probably it was an electrical powered boat. So the energy transition still is going on, and it's on its way also here in Amsterdam. Ladies and gentlemen, the most recent Elfstedentocht was contested in 1997. For those who you are unfamiliar with the event, the Elfstedentocht, which translates as the Tour of 11 Towns, is a long-distance speed skating race, nearly 200 kilometers long, contested on natural ice, which passes through 11 towns in the northern province of Friesland, Frisia. The first edition of this race was contested in 1909. In order for the race to be able to be held, we must have a long and very cold winter with continuous sub-zero temperatures. There are those who believe that we will never have another Elfstedentocht due to climate change and global warming. By now, most people seem to agree that our planet has been getting warmer since around the year 1900. Most people also seem to agree that carbon dioxide is playing a part in this process. But as you probably know, we also have a challenge with nitrogen at the moment in the Netherlands. And fewer people are now denying that humans have made a significant contribution to global warming and to carbon dioxide emissions since the year 1950. So the main question that needs answered is obviously, how do we solve this problem? And is there any way it can be solved? And this obvious answer is to look at how we get our power. Given the current levels of global warming, carbon emissions, pollution, fossil fuel depletion, and modern geopolitics, it seems sensible, if not outright necessary, to focus on non-fossil energy sources, which means focusing on the transition to different types of energy. In so doing, we must be as matter of fact as possible in devising measures designed to reduce our carbon emissions. And the major advantage of solar and wind energy is that they hardly emit any carbon dioxide. But there is a challenge too, in that the energy density of solar energy, wind energy, and biomass is minimal. In other words, you need a lot of room to be able to generate significant energy, which is why people are exploring the possibility of doing it in deserts, for example. Thankfully, as far as the energy transition is concerned, we are seeing science develop at a rapid pace, especially in the most recent years, and our outstanding of the subject is rapidly increasing as well. So the same thing is true for our knowledge of nuclear power in the development of thorium-based power plants, which are much safer and generate much less waste than previous generation nuclear power plants in the past. Anyhow, on today's theme now, an energy in transition. It's a highly topical subject, which will continue to be topical for many more years to come. Obviously, a transition to different sources of energy with a view to reducing carbon emissions is something that will require an international approach. Since there is no such thing as a world government, we have no choice to rely on international collaboration and the commitments entered into by the various countries. It seems safe to assume that Western democracies will be doing much of the heavy lifting in this respect. In other words, here, too, there is work to be done. And the Netherlands won't be the Netherlands if we weren't to devote itself to this. We are a progressive country, after all. And our Minister of Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation, Sigrid Kaag, and Erik Wiebes, the Minister of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy, call this effort climate diplomacy. It's not a bad name, really. After all, there is some missionary work to be done. Not to convert people to a religious belief, but to ensure that future generations will be able to enjoy good lives and prosperity. 2 weeks ago, the aforementioned ministers updated the Dutch lower house on how climate diplomacy is being used and what progress is being made. And the Dutch cabinet has intensified its climate diplomacy efforts with both EU member states and other countries, so as to encourage these countries to be more ambitious and proactive in implementing measures to address climate change. There is a group of ambitious countries in the EU who seek to attain more ambitious climate targets. This group, who consists of Denmark, Finland, France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, Slovenia and Sweden, is seeking to have a treaty calling for climate neutrality by the year of 2050, ratified as soon as possible. Furthermore, the Netherlands had advocated that the EU use to foreign policy to get climate change higher on various country agendas. In short, climate change is a global problem, but obviously there has been many international, national and regional initiatives to mitigate its effects. The EU has come up with some good international initiatives. 2 weeks ago, it was announced that the Dutch politician Frans Timmermans, as European Commissioner, will coordinate the Green Deal, which is designed to make Europe a role model in the field of climate policy. I don't think it's strange that people look to the Netherlands for inspiration with these types of initiatives. Our history, and particularly our experience of managing the water that might otherwise engulf us, has resulted in an expertise in hydraulic engineering that is highly valued abroad as well as locally. In addition, it has turned us into pragmatic people who all are aware of the necessity of mutual consultation, collaboration, and consensus. This attitude not only gave us water boards and our wide range of organization, it also raised in our oft-praised polder model, which is to say our devotion to seeking to arrive at a consensus, both in politics and in society. And this lack of squabbling is beneficial to economic growth. In 1997, Bill Clinton showered praise on our polder model. Of course, the economy was booming at that time. And it should be noted that the Dutch knowledge of hydraulic engineering is proving useful even today. You see, the Dutch approach to deltas is regarded as a blueprint for vulnerable coastal areas. And we'll soon have to step up our efforts to protect vulnerable areas all over the world, extreme weather caused by climate change. And this is the conclusion drawn in the flagship report by the Global Commission on Adaptation, which was released recently. Scientists expect the amount of damage caused by inundation, heat, drought and flooding to increase even further if we fail to invest in measures that will prevent damage due to climate change. For instance, we will have to strengthen the resilience of coastal areas and future-proof our cities and agricultural land so as to be able to deal with extreme water and weather, of course. All right, that said, I will now leave aside global problems and focus instead on solutions that are, for the time being, local. After all, what works in one place may very well be effective in other places too. And under the Dutch Climate Treaty, the Netherlands has committed to reduce its carbon emissions by 49% from the 1990 level by the year 2030. And all types of industry, the manufacturing industry, the built environment, agriculture and transport will have to pitch in if we are to achieve this target. And this is where the aforementioned polder model, which is to say consensus-based decision-making, comes in handy. It was partly why we were able to draw up the Dutch Climate Treaty. It involved in a typically Dutch negotiation procedure in which all sectors, interest groups, companies, etc. got together to discuss this and enter into commitments, including provincial and municipal authorities. The treaty is expected to be signed by all parties involved in November. And just like before, this ever-so Dutch process of negotiation is being followed by other countries with great interest. All sectors have committed to make changes. For instance, this is what our government wants the transport sector to achieve. An ability to transport everything and everyone without worries by 2050. No carbon emissions, outstanding access to all places for people young and old, rich and poor, able-bodied and disabled. Affordable, safe, comfortable, easy and healthy. Clever, sustainable, compact cities where people and goods can be transported without a hitch. Beautiful, livable and easily accessible rural areas and villages where proper transport is the link between private lives, work and leisure activities. This is quite an ambitious goal, which the government hopes to attain by promoting an integral approach to the transportation system, in which all means of transport and all available infrastructure will be developed and utilized to the best of our ability, and in which all means of transport will eventually be green. And I know what I say because in my former function I was chairman of the Dutch Association of Transport and Logistics. And instead of advocating our own interest, we really changed our goal in being a partner of the government. And that's why this treaty, I really assure this treaty will work. And in this way, we will not only honor our commitments under the 215 Paris Agreement, but also make a significant contribution to the reduction of other types of environmental damage. And as I mentioned earlier, the provincial and municipal authorities were also involved in the Dutch Climate Treaty. And they will ensure that 35 terawatt-hours worth of renewable energy is generated by 2030. And this means that they will have to find room for solar and wind energy on their own land. Municipal governments are drawing up plans for a transition in the heating and cooling of spaces to ensure that the built environment no longer relies on natural gas. And the idea is to completely stop using natural gas by 2050. As mentioned before, the guiding principle of the Dutch Climate Treaty is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 49% from the 1990 level by the year 2030. This will require an energy transition, which is to say a transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. In other words, to generate electricity, we will switch from coal and gas to wind and solar power, and in the long run, hydrogen power. And to heat our homes, we will switch from gas to geothermal heating, waste heat industry, or all electric. And for transport, it will involve a transition from petrol and diesel or Lpg to electric vehicles, or in the long run, hydrogen, biofuels, etc. So the energy transition is a major operation that will require a great effort and a large financial outlay from many parties. It's one of the main challenges the Netherlands will face in the coming years. On the one hand, we will focus on getting more electric vehicles on the road. On the other hand, we will also focus on the development of biofuels, like biogas. And it is the latter development that may present LPG companies with a few opportunities. LPG is a fossil fuel that may be phased out due to energy transition, which means the industry faces an uncertain future. LPG companies could try to change tack and focus on producing biofuels instead. In the Netherlands, LPG consumption has been decreased for years, among several reasons due to higher excise duties and incentives to use electrical vehicles. However, on the global level, LPG consumption is actually on the rise, since it's a relatively clean type of fuel with emits less carbon dioxide than petrol or diesel, and because it's easy to transport and store. Some people consider LPG as a transition fuel. Transition fuels are types of fuel that may help us significantly reduce carbon emissions in the short term, and it may help us transition to other greener fuels in the longer term. The same idea of transition can also be seen in the way we use gas. Here in the Netherlands, we have recently become keen to stop using gas, while other countries around us actually switching from other fuels such as coal to gas. We will see a lot of that during the transition process. Different people having different views, changing views, innovations, unexpected developments, advances in knowledge and lessons learned. In short, the goals we are working towards may change quite a bit by 2050. We must be able to respond to such changes. This being the case, the models we use should not be dogmatic. They should be realistic panoramas of a distant future, which must be able to be adjusted for the latest developments and scientific insights. After all, we are dealing with things that are uncertain. Developments on the national and global levels are not entirely predictable. And this may raise the following questions, among, of course, many others. Do European and national energy and climate policies provide investors with significant certainty? And how will the prices of fossil fuels and renewable energy develop in the coming years? Which will become the dominant technologies? Many technologies are not yet fully developed. Moreover, innovation may result in new technologies. Uncertainty trends to make investors nervous. And how will public support for certain technologies develop in the next few years? We seek to make the province of North Holland energy neutral by 2050. This is to say, we seek to bring about a situation in which energy consumption is more or less in line with the amount of renewable energy generated, thus eliminating the needs of fossil fuels, of course. Energy neutrality will result in a significant reduction in carbon emissions. And just to give you an idea what we are doing, at present, 5.7% of North Holland power is generated by renewable sources. Onshore wind power is the fastest growing source of renewable energy. But for the time being, renewable energy is more expensive than fossil fuels. And without government subsidies, it's not profitable. Based on scientific research on the various sectors requiring energy, we expect North Holland's demand for energy to be somewhere between 160 petajoules and 200 petajoules by 2050. In our province, the following sources of renewable energy are important: geothermal heat pumps and ambient heat, wind power, solar power, of course solar panels and solar collectors, biomass, and biogas, and that can be upgraded to green gas. Other technologies such as osmosis or seaweed farming are too cost inefficient for the time being, or are too far removed from the market to be usable. In short, the road is long and we don't have much time. And the English poet William Blake wrote in 1790, "Energy is eternal delight." Of course, Blake was referring to human energy, but the words also apply to energy transition we are currently facing. If the world managed to meet the challenge heat on and successfully, our renewable energy may give us eternal delight as well. Thinking outside the box, being creative, launching new and different ideas, this is what our ambition to bring about climate neutrality by the year 2050 is all about. And this is true for LPG companies, and it's true for all types of industry. and for all parties involved in the energy transition, which is both an interesting and incredibly complicated challenge. And I wish you, as a WLPG Forum, all the best of luck in bringing it together and about. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very wonderful Congress this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Van Dijk. As the Commissioner mentioned, of course, we have that European Green Deal expected by February, and that's going to be a big game changer potentially for the EU, particularly in getting it to its net neutrality by 2050 goal. And this is why the timing of this event is so important, because that policy is being created as we speak. And so it's really important for all energy stakeholders to get in there early on with the Commission when it takes office on November 1st. And I'm sure this Green Deal topic is going to be coming up a lot during this whole day, but in particular in our first panel, which is coming up right after the coffee break, where we're going to be talking about these political issues in the energy transition. So now we have our first coffee break. We'll be back here in the room at 10:15 for our Energy in Transition panel. I'll see you then.